One match. One referee. One official letter that just landed on FIFA's desk in Zurich, and the entire opening chapter of the World Cup has been thrown into chaos. This is something that in the modern era of the tournament we have almost never seen. A nation on the biggest stage football has, formally accusing the game's governing body of failing them. Not a manager whining in a press conference. Not a fan base flooding social media. A federation. On paper. Signed, stamped, filed, and if you think this is just Egypt throwing a tantrum after a bad result, you have no idea what was already brewing inside that dressing room before the letter was ever written. Let's set the scene. A packed stadium. Argentina in white and sky blue, Egypt in red, and 90 minutes of football that will now be remembered less for the goals and more for what did not happen. 2 penalty shouts waved away, a red card that turned yellow at the last second, a goal chalked off for a margin so tight the broadcast graphics could not even agree on the line. Final score, Argentina 2, Egypt 1. And on the touchline, Egyptian head coach Hassam Hassan stood frozen, hands on his hips, staring at the fourth official like a man who had just watched something be stolen from him in broad daylight. He said it in the mixed zone afterwards, and I am quoting him. "We did not lose this match, it was taken from us." He had no idea how prophetic that line would become, because within 48 hours the Egyptian Football Association had turned that sentence into a formal document and sent it directly to FIFA headquarters. Now on the surface, this looks like sour grapes. Big nation beats African side, losing team cries foul, the world moves on. That's how these stories usually die. But the second you look behind the curtain, the picture completely changes. Because this is not really a story about one match. This is a story about a federation that has been quietly collecting grievances for months, and finally decided the dam had to break. Start with the referee. The official in the middle was appointed less than 72 hours before kickoff. A late swap after the originally scheduled referee was pulled without public explanation. Egypt were not informed of the reason. Argentina, according to reporting out of Buenos Aires, were, read that carefully, because it is extraordinary. One team knew, the other did not, in a World Cup group stage fixture, in 2026. Then there's the incident in the 63rd minute. Mohamed Salah cutting in from the right is clipped inside the box. The contact is clear, the angle is clear. VAR takes 41 seconds to review it and decides no penalty. 41 seconds. For context, the same VAR crew earlier in the tournament took 22 seconds to award a spot kick to France for a challenge that was, by every serious analyst read, softer. Think about that. Almost double the review time. And the harder foul is the one that gets waved away. And then there is the detail that really tells you how far gone this was. The Egyptian Federation's letter, according to leaks reported by 3 separate outlets, does not just complain about the match. It lists 6 specific incidents across the qualification cycle and the tournament build-up where Egypt claimed they were denied information, denied fair scheduling, and denied the same VAR standards applied to European and South American sides. 6, not 1, not 2. 6 documented grievances delivered in a single dossier. Brick after brick after brick. When your federation has been keeping a receipt drawer for 2 years and finally empties it onto FIFA's desk, this is not a knee-jerk reaction. This is a plan. And here is where it gets historically serious. In the entire modern history of the World Cup, formal complaints from participating nations against FIFA officiating during an active tournament are almost unheard of. Mexico grumbled in 2010. Ghana went public with fury after 2010 as well, but never filed. Cameroon threatened in 2014 and pulled back. The reason nations do not do this is simple. FIFA controls hosting rights, prize money distribution, development grants, and refereeing appointments for the next cycle. You do not pick a fight with the house that owns the casino. Until now. Egypt is the first major footballing nation in over a decade to formally, officially in writing tell FIFA that its own tournament is not being run fairly. That is the record being broken here, not a scoreline. A silence. So what happens now? Technically, FIFA's disciplinary committee has to acknowledge receipt within 5 working days. They then have a window to decide whether to open a formal review, dismiss the complaint, or in the worst case for them, refer it to the ethics committee. The problem? Egypt's next fixture is in 6 days. Against a European side, with, in all likelihood, another referee appointed under the same opaque process that started this fire in the first place. And over the next 3 weeks, every single one of Egypt's group stage matches is going to be watched not just for the football, but for the whistle. Every decision, every review, every replay. Under a microscope FIFA did not want and cannot switch off. Let me be fair for a second, because this channel does not deal in fantasy. It is entirely possible that FIFA reviews the complaint, finds the officiating was within acceptable margins, and closes the file quietly. Referees make mistakes. VAR is imperfect. Big teams have always seemed to catch the friendlier edge of 50-50 calls, and that is not, on its own, evidence of corruption. Egypt lost a tight game to one of the tournament favorites. That happens. But that is exactly what makes it a nightmare instead of a footnote. Because the story is no longer whether Egypt were robbed. The story is whether FIFA can be trusted to investigate itself. And every day this drags on. Every press conference where a spokesperson dodges the question. Every leaked memo. Every anonymous quote from a referee committee source becomes another brick in a wall that FIFA is going to have to explain away. Brick after brick after brick. And here's the thesis. The thing I want you to sit with. FIFA has spent 4 years selling this World Cup as the biggest, fairest, most inclusive tournament ever staged. 48 teams, 3 host nations, a global celebration. That was the marketing, that was the promise. But when the first serious African contender in years stands up on day 4 and says publicly that the promise is a lie, you do not get to spin your way out of it with a press release. When a federation writes it down, signs it, and files it, the burden of proof flips. FIFA now has to prove the tournament is clean. Egypt no longer has to prove it is dirty. That is a fundamentally different World Cup than the one that kicked off a week ago. And Mohamed Salah, standing in that tunnel after the match, jersey untucked, eyes red, said one more thing that the cameras almost missed. He said, and again, I am quoting him, "We are not asking to win. We are asking to be seen." Read that twice. Because in one sentence, a 33-year-old at what is almost certainly his final World Cup summed up everything this complaint is really about. It is not about a penalty. It is not about a red card. It is about a continent, a federation, and a generation of players who have spent decades being told they are welcome at the table and then served last. Every single time. The line never came for Egypt in that 63rd minute. And by now, nobody's surprised. Now, I want to hear from you. Was Egypt right to file this complaint and force FIFA into the open? Or is this a federation pointing fingers to cover for a defeat they should have accepted? Was this a brave, ruthless act of accountability? Or did Egypt just press the panic button on their own tournament? Drop your verdict in the comments, because I read them, and this one, I promise you, is going to split the room down the middle. Subscribe, because we are barely a week into this World Cup, and it is already eating referees, coaches, and federations alive. Trust me, this will not be the last complaint filed before the group stage is done. The line never came. The letter did. And FIFA now has to answer. I'll see you in the next one.